New tonight at 10, the 57th annual Kootaga District Buckskin Council Leadership Dinner was held this evening at the Parkersburg Country Club. They used this time to raise funds to meet and hopefully exceed their fundraising goals to continue to better deliver the promise of scouting in the area. Social time was at 5:30 p.m. and the dinner began at 6:30. Michael Benson, the president of WVU, was the featured speaker. Benson said he has a long history with scouting.
A lot of the lessons I learned in scouting really I got at home too, because my dad was a scout, my older brother was a scout, went to Philmont twice, the big scout camp in New Mexico. But it's dependability, telling the truth, being resourceful. Those skills, those abilities, those traits, those life lessons, as I said, I apply them in many ways to what I do every single day as president of the university. And I'll say tonight in my speech, those lessons can be, they're portable, they're transferable, they can be applied to just about anything in life.
Keeping us funded helps keep units alive. There are units in our area that are part of very impoverished communities, and the council, through raising these funds, has given those units an opportunity to continue in scouting, even if they can't necessarily, every individual in the unit can't afford scouting.
The Kootaga District serves scouts and volunteers in the following counties: Wood, Jackson, Wirt, Roane, Ritchie, and Calhoun counties in West Virginia, and the communities of Belpre, Little Hawking, and Coolville in Ohio.